These are my 3 cordless drills. The one is a screwdriver bit, the second one from the left is a regular drill a hole bit, and then there's the countersink bit, which is on an impact drill that I recently bought. Didn't think I would like it, but it works quickly when you're countersinking, and a lot of times I do countersink on the Trainboard. This is a Bosch light that I found very useful. It bends, it's got magnets, you could stick it a lot of different places, and it uses the battery from my Bosch drill, so that's very useful. Surprisingly, I use this plastic metric ruler a lot, especially when I'm doing the trestles and inclines and declines, and with my Atlas track, seems like I'm always having to put shims underneath it, even though my board is not warped. So I use both of these very often. That's a mixing stick from Home Depot, and I cut it with metal cutting shears, so it's very nice that you can make it however long or short that I need it. I use 3 types of pliers. You've got the channel pliers, flat, the needle nose, the cutting pliers, and of course you got the screwdrivers. The blue handled channel pliers is very useful when a screw strips and the front tip is totally flat, so you can turn often the stripped screws out using that channel plier. Of course, you use scissors, the drill bits, pencils. That brush and cardboard container, the cardboard container I got from Five Guys, they use them when they serve you peanuts. It flexes, and every time I drill a hole or do something, I use that little brush to pick up the sawdust that's generated. So it's kind of useful. Those are the 2 screw sizes that I tend to use. There are 1 inch and there's a 1 1/4 inch. So I find those used most. Here you have Klein wire strippers, which I like very much. It's my 3rd try at getting a pair of strippers that I'd use every day. The battery tester there, to test 9 volts. Since I have 25 Proto 1 engines and I had to replace all the batteries, that was useful in testing all the 9 volts. It turned out that most of the 9 volts have been sitting in there for 6 to 8 years, and after they charged them, they took a full charge and they seemed to last quite a long time. So it was useful to have that. Cotton swabs that I use to clean the engines and a lot of other things. There's the distribution point connector that I use, the spray bottle. Some of my passenger cars and engines have sat on the shelf quite a while, maybe 6 years, and I tried Almirall protectorant on the cars and engines, and it makes the plastic look brand new. So it's kind of a useful thing to have around. I use the paint sticks from Home Depot often to fix the Atlas track. Seem to have a lot of problems with getting the Atlas track level. Those steel cutters are real nice that you could cut a very straight cut on the mixing sticks, so together I use them every day. Here's the X-Acto knife and the X-Acto saw. I use them quite a bit to cut boards, making trestles. Also, we have the small screwdrivers a lot of times, especially trying to put down the trestles. The small screwdrivers manually, they fit in tight places, so it's very useful. There's the spade terminals that I like. And the barrel connectors for wires, I like them. They screw apart and you can use them on the transformers. Here's my strip wood cutting board. Use it to cut wood, especially when you're doing trestles. Cut a bunch of different things when you're doing modeling. Magnifying glass and tongue depressors. Use the tongue depressors again to level things out. A Dremel, useful tool everywhere. Cutting track, doing little cuts. I have the electric wired one. I didn't for some reason see this cordless one when I was buying mine, but that's something to have. Also, the Dremel keyless chuck, it's much easier to turn it and put different things in your Dremel, so it's well worth the $11. There's also the Dremel cutting wheels. These are much better. It's got a little tip on it that you see to lock it on. Cuts the track much better than the wheels that come with the regular Dremel. This is the Mega Newspin pad that I got at Michael's for covering my workspace. It's much easier. It's 18 by 24. You rip it off instead of getting a mess all over, depending on what you're doing, but very useful to keep your workspace clean, and it's inexpensive. Track by cleaning pad. Use this, sandpaper, and isopropyl alcohol on a cotton swab to clean the track. My Irwin quick grip clamps, use those often, especially when putting together the 1x4s with the Trainboard, but all the time you find uses for it. I took this idea idea of a magnetic gluing rig from this that used to be sold. I have a metal bottom piece and make it so you have right angles, and those little rectangular magnets are from those things that I put on my heating vents. So it's very useful in putting buildings together. Here is the Rector Seal flux for soldering that I like, and also the keister solder itself. The keister solder is $27. The flux is $8, but it should last us a very long time. This is the Henry Company foam board adhesive. It doesn't dissolve. There's very little fumes, and it's relatively inexpensive. I've only used these once. The shaper sheet plaster paper. It's coated with plaster. You can work it. You can mold it. Seems something good to use besides the regular paper towel soaked in plaster. Curtain shower rings, inexpensive. When you're wiring and you got wires all over the place, piles of them, this helps to mount them under the board and also to separate different wires so you can find them easily and trace it. This is a foam topper that we originally bought to use on our bed on the mattress. Didn't work out, but it kept a piece. When you're working on engines, placing the batteries, doing any kind of, it's very soft. It doesn't break pieces off any of your cars or anything you're working on, so it's very useful to have a soft pad like that. My cordless Bosch circular saw, very helpful, especially doing the Trainboard, initially building it. It's useful all the time. Cordless, not heavy, excellent saw. Here's the Tamiya glue cement. Crazy glue, sometimes often I have problems with it going bad very, very quickly. This doesn't seem to be that, and yeah, it takes a little while to cure. Helpful. My Bluetooth Shark wireless or wired speaker, I tend to use it wired. It's only about 8 inches long, maybe 3-4 inches wide. Fills my cellar with sound. I use it in conjunction with my Echo Dot. That way I can walk around my Trainboard with my Note 8 in my pocket and change my playlists of music. You spend a lot of time working on trains, so it's very nice to have music all the time. Or I can even play YouTube, or I can use Sling, and I play the different sports announcer programs while I'm working on the Trainboard, so you'll learn a lot while you're working. Found this Canoe Concepts wire 16 gauge from working with my stereo. Use it on the Trainboard, also very good. Tends to not have interference. You don't lose much, seems like you don't lose much signal. The other wire I like is the Tyumen 40-foot 18 gauge wire. Didn't use 18 gauge much until I started to work with the MTH accessory interface unit. Relatively inexpensive, easy to work with, but kind of thin, but okay depending on using it for accessories, depending on where you use it. Love my 10 Energy battery charger for 9 volt. Also, I like those batteries for replacing the MTH. MTH wants about between $8 and $10 a battery. 10 Energies are around $4 or $5 a battery on Amazon, but the battery charger is wonderful. The 9 volt batteries actually snap in very tightly, which is unusual for a charger. Thank you very much for watching.